Welcome to the first 7 years, your trusted guide through the journey of early childhood. Join us as we explore the crucial aspects of growth and development, nutrition, and the healthcare choice interventions that shape the first 7 years of your child's life. Together, we'll discover the building blocks of a healthy, happy future for our children. Your journey into the world of parenting and caregiving starts right here, right now.
And please note, the information provided in the first 7 years is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute or for advice from your pediatrician or any other healthcare professional. Always consult with your doctor regarding any medical concerns or health conditions, and the views expressed on the show and or by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the first 7 years.
Today, we have with us Hannah Mclane, who is a trend analyst at Spate NYC. Welcome.
Thank you.
Which is a leading data insights company that tracks consumer behavior, viral trends, and industry shifts in health, wellness, and beauty. She specializes in identifying social media-driven trends and helping brands understand what's real versus what's hype. Spate's trend analysis has been featured in major publications, helping consumers and companies navigate the fast-paced world of digital trends. Welcome.
This is super exciting because the consumer that's listening at home and wondering, what's real? What am I being fed in terms of, paid advertisement versus what's actually usable information? We're going to dive into that, where parents should really be paying attention, talk about a few products and, what's trending, of course, even how you, being a new mother and of course, a health advocate, trend setter analyst, what you're using in your own toolbox with Gigi. We might actually meet Gigi a bit later as well.
I hope so.
And what's trending in in utero even when parents are with new children, but also before it all even starts, right, Doc?
Mm-hmm,
I mean, we're talking about like when they're pregnant, through the early toddler years and throughout childhood. What should we be paying attention to these trends or not?
Should we and how should we?
Right.
Yeah.
So digital literacy, the importance of that. That's what we're talking about today. And Hannah's going to help break that all down for us. What's trending, why it's trending, and of course, whether it's truly beneficial or just marketing hype. But as we always do on the show, we want to start with what is trending in the world of Dr. Murray Clarke, your signature thoughts, because as it's related, especially to this topic, you've got some wise words.
Great. So the question is, obviously trends exist. I think trends are sometimes driven just by trend and sometimes by necessity or being valid. Mm-hmm. So these are some current trends in the children's nutrition market over the past few months. So I want to take a look at those. It's 3: mind and mood, fiber and greens, probiotics. And so what's the common denominator? If we look at this as some sort of necessity rather than just a fad, what's the common denominator? So if we go to the next step, the microbiome. Yeah. So all of those things. So probiotics are the probiotics, the good guys in the microbiome. The fiber and greens provide the prebiotics, the food for the probiotics, which without the prebiotics, the probiotics don't live. And mind and mood, how's that related? Because it turns out that 90% of the neurotransmitters that the brain uses are actually manufactured and are sitting in the gut, in the microbiome at all times. So you have these 3 trends, probiotics, prebiotics, mind and mood, all coming back to one common denominator. And in terms of a big trend from my perspective as a pediatrician over the last 30 years, this is the biggest conundrum that parents face these days. One hand, we have deficiencies throughout the diet, the soil, nutrients. The other hand, we have overwhelming toxicity and burden from the environment. So how does a parent balance these? How do we use these different understanding and products to actually address these for our child from day one? Or if we go back to Hannah's point, from conception.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would almost argue that what we're contending with in this day and age, especially when it's, of course, maybe false advertising and or, something that's overly trending for whatever reason, you're going to explain this to us, that we're actually dealing with this additional, more ethereal toxin. I really believe that, this, not just, too much time on the screen and not enough exercise and all that, but like this is a mental talk. Here's a study. I mean, I don't know that this even exists, but it would be an interesting study, is time spent on devices, TikTok, social media, Instagram, so forth, causing microbiome disruption. I mean, maybe indirectly, because this is the link, right? I mean, this is what you're talking, mind, brain, gut connection.
All connected.
Is there. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to play this. I have to play this. I was running this morning, and it was just a random, music playlist, hype music when I'm running. And this song came on, and it's so fitting. I want everyone to listen to these lyrics for a second.
Okay.
Go get your DeLorean. We are this drama in our life. Just staring at the screen every day and night. I miss the rush of living in real life. Go get your DeLorean.
So I don't know what the "Go Get Your DeLorean" is about, but the lyrics go, essentially, can we get back to 95 before we had this drama in our lives, just staring at a screen every day and night? I miss the rush of living in real life, because so many of us aren't, right? We're deluded. We're living fake lives. We're living on these screens too much. It's the topic of the discussion today as well, in part. But before we go down that rabbit hole, maybe a little bit, Hannah, tell us all about this ingenious product and how we're going to come back to this throughout the day, throughout the show today. What is Spate? How should we be using this? How can we use this to potentially live happier, healthier lives through all these ages and stages?
Of course. Thanks, Bryce. So you can think about Spate as almost this crystal ball, right? What do the next 12 months hold for wellness, for health, for beauty, but all through the eyes of the consumer? So instead of, consulting experts like yourself, it's like, what do consumers look for? What are they looking for on Google, TikTok, Instagram? And then what does that mean for different wellness trends, right? We're seeing creatine explode, like we saw magnesium explode, probiotics, and now we're seeing that carry into childhood trends,
right?
Which is really interesting.
We were talking off camera a moment ago as well. That's how our patients are often now coming to us, maybe the last 6 months, a year, with differential diagnoses that they've gathered through not just Google anymore, on ChatGPT. Yeah.
So you have patients, requesting their health update from ChatGPT, and then coming to us. Is this really what the real answer is? So
it's bonkers. And again, I was kind of quipping that in this day and age, if you want cancer, you can almost imagine it just by doing a Google search. I will reiterate, by the way, on this show, on the first 7 years, we're very evidence-based, as we're about to be through Spate as well, but we like to refer to open evidence. We like to refer to consensus. These are both free versions, folks, online that you can look at that will do a far better job than your language model, maybe that'll get better, but these are evidence-based. And by the way, they're AI-driven. So we're not against AI. Leverage the heck out of it, but make sure you're at a resource that it really understands the data, because this can get crazy. You don't want to have cancer just because your AI's diluted.
Because you asked them.
Yeah. So Hannah, you mentioned probiotics, and of course, Dr. Murray's sort of trend analysis outside of AI is also that in this day and age, brain-gut connection and everything else. How would one, starting with, in utero, so now, mom's pregnant and maybe she's thinking about probiotics are a good idea. How can she look at maybe starting with something like Spate to determine what these, what probiotics are out there, what's trending, what's, working for people, why they're looking toward probiotics? I mean, give us a little bit more insight as to how we might use this tool.
Yeah, let's pull up probiotics. So type it in the search bar, and let's see what's been happening over the past 3 years, and then what the next 12 months look like. And I think what's interesting here is at Spate, we work with brands mostly, right? And they're coming in here and they're understanding what are those consumer needs that are unmet, and how do we create a product out of that? Or how do we better advertise to consumers so they feel like they're getting what they want? So you see probiotics here, they're predicted to grow almost another 50%. That's huge considering how large the market already is. There's so many different brands you could buy, but there's already so much room for growth beyond this, which is crazy.
Yeah, let's pay attention. Let's just zoom in on this for a second here, because this is really the IP, or one of the biggest, most interesting aspects of Spate is it'll give you real time, and you'll be able to see that. But this crystal ball, as you alluded to at the end here, this is like a year's worth of predicted analysis as to where we expect probiotics to be throughout 2026, right? How are you doing that, or how is Spate doing that?
So what we're doing is we are founded by 2 ex-Googlers, right? And they noticed that people were Google searching things like crazy, like they are with LLMs now. So they took this data, they run it through machine learning. It's a fancy word for AI. And then we're looking at patterns, behaviors to understand what is the predicted growth. And now we have a 72% accuracy rate in predicting these trends. And if you scroll down, what's nice is we give you this little green bar on the right saying, will it last? We're telling you how likely this is to last. So sometimes we're uncertain, right? Sometimes trends can be really volatile. It's hard to predict consumer behavior, but sometimes we're very certain that a trend will last. And in this case, what's interesting with probiotics is gut health is the number one concern. That's what's driving people to buy probiotics is their gut health.
Interesting.
And what platforms are you drawing the info from?
From Google, TikTok, Instagram. And if you scroll up, I think what's really interesting here, if you scroll all the way to the top, TikTok is the dominating platform here. And I think parents especially feel really overwhelmed by the amount of information on TikTok because you see video after video. And if you note down here, there's about 42% of these videos that are paid. So it's brands pushing this content to you. Right. So I think as a parent, you have to be careful with what type of content you're ingesting and then how you're using that information.
Let's stick on that for a moment, though, because, I mean, what is it that, a parent can, a new mom, a pregnant mom, a mom of young children, a father, parents of young children, what is it that they can actually identify in a piece of media that might alert them to it being fully paid brand endorsement versus educational or maybe informational?
That's a great question, and we can do this on the dashboard too. So I would start to look for hashtags that say paid partner, ad. So if you scroll down, we actually track the amount of commercial content. You can see these are all tagged paid videos here. So this video, you see the second video here, this might look like, oh, it's an organic video. He's just talking about different side effects he has or signs of bad gut health. But this is actually a paid post that he's doing. So it's really hard to identify. We think back 5 years ago, it was very obvious. This isn't a very obvious paid partnership with Goli.
Got it.
Interesting. By the way, just to note, we were in a global market there because you're able to shift between, US, UK, France, South Korea, Japan, and global. So I guess our audience is probably most interested in the U.S. market here.
If you go up, look at that paid number for U.S. 80%.
80%
in the U.S.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So besides the hashtag, any other signs that you're watching, something that you're just trying to be influenced to purchase?
I've noticed this new tactic where it's a series of pictures on TikTok, and it'll go by a concern. It'll be like, are you struggling with your gut? And you think as a consumer, yes, I am. And it goes through all of these signs, and you're like, oh, this person's speaking to me. The last picture is always some sort of product they're trying to sell you. So just be mindful of that when you are looking at content, especially as a mom, as a parent. You want to do everything for your child. So you're like, yes, buy. But do your research before you're purchasing something.
Okay. So if we're looking, in those first, the baby's born, you're looking at infancy, those first 1-2 years. Both from your own experience and your expertise, what did you end up looking for, giving to your baby?
That's a great question. I think because I'm a working mom, right, I knew I was going to be going back to work. I knew that we needed to have formula that was ready on hand. And that's what I felt the most compelled to do research on. And I was really struggling in the research process. There are so many different formulas with seed oils in them. And I know that is kind of a controversial term because there can be good seed oils and bad ones. So I think it really took this long process of going through all these different formulas, seeing what was right. That was probably the one thing that was on top of my mind the most. And then it was this shame around, should I co-sleep? Should I not? Because there is so much shame around being a new mom. It's, if you co-sleep with them, you have the risk of, you have your baby in bed, it's not good. If you put them in a crib and they're crying, you might be ruining their attachment style. So I think you have to look at your gut, your intuition as a mom, and what works for you.
We come back to the gut again,
Yeah, back to the gut. Trust your gut,
And so I'm curious, with the formula, did you end up with cow, goat, or sheep?
We ended up going with a toddler formula for emergencies. Now, we only ended up giving it to her about one time. I was fortunate enough I could breastfeed and I could pump. It was an A2 formula because it was the only one on the market that didn't have a seed oil in it, which is so crazy because there are these certain ramifications that you need to meet with the formula. Yeah.
Regulatory.
By the FDA, which is
Exactly.
a whole nother story.
We hope that changes soon.
Yeah, I hope that changes too.
So hold on, before we jump to any next topic of trending and maybe what you used with Gigi, your daughter, Doc, what should folks be looking at in a formula? What is an optimal formula? Because I heard you hint at it.
Oh, it's a great question. In my experience, I think sheep milk is the closest to human milk. So for me, the sheep milk is the ideal. Again, then looking at the ingredients, grass-fed, where it's sourced from. It's the only country, well, not the only, but the country that I like, quite a bias because I grew up there, is New Zealand, which produces sheep milk formula now. Really high quality. Next to that, we have the goat formulas that have been based, from European countries and New Zealand for years. And then we have the cow-based, dairy-based ones. So most of the time, I think the sheep milk is the safest option, less likely to provoke any allergies or any gut upset. So for me, those are the choices. Obviously, every parent, every child's different, so you choose your own.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And that's the hard part of being a parent is every choice is your own, but you feel this sense of guilt with every decision you make.
Right. Docosahexaenoic acid, DHA, one of the most important omega-3s, probably also trending, but that's not the point.
Yep.
We want to make sure that that's high in the mom. That is high in that particular type of milk as well, of course, sheep milk, but grass-fed, of course, that's where it comes from. But if you have to rely on a formula, you want it high and or adulterated, if you will, added DHA and EPA. Yep. And our friend, Dr. Bill Harris, I just want to throw a call out to him.
This is a
and
great test. Great test.
Just tell us about this. I mean,
So this is an at-home test that you can do from day one, from conception, from birth, whenever you, and it'll actually tell you what your level of DHA is just with a finger prick from home. So fantastic resource.
collect the sample. It's your breast milk. Mail it in. Get the results in a couple of weeks. Yeah, and if you're not high enough, you, mom, just
take a little more.
Start to take more. Exactly. What is it behind seed oils? Maybe we could spend a couple of seconds on this because we talk about it, but in terms of the trend, right? It's very high popularity, likely to stay high throughout the next year. But why do we care?
This is an emerging subject over the last few years. So seed oils essentially are PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids. There's a good side and a bad side to them. The bad side is that they oxidize very quickly, very easily, both in the human body and when subjected to temperature. So if the diet is unbalanced in the quantity, those versus the solid omega-3s like olive oil, avocado oil, fish oil, then you're getting this inflammatory response from seed oils, provoking an inflammatory response in your body, in your infant's body. And if that starts from, day one, then it's sort of priming their system, your child's system, to go that way into an inflammatory state from the beginning. And as adults, the same inflammatory, reaction is triggered if our diet's out of balance with that too. So for me, the overall, it used to be a little bit ambiguous, but evidence now, try and stay away.
One of the things I tend to fall back on in clinical practice if I'm unsure is evolutionary biology. How long have we been evolving as a human species and what have we been doing over that time? Those trends are millions of years, let alone, So I fall back to the idea that seeds, forget seed oil extracts, seeds haven't been around longer than about 30,000 years that we've actually been foraging. And when we foraged and ate them, it was very rare. But now it's every day, grains and seeds. So I gather, not everything could be anthropological or epidemiological, but I gather that our immune systems haven't really adapted to the seed oil, apropos versus, for example, breast milk or milk from,
and probably shouldn't adapt to it.
Right. That's the point you're making. Today's episode of The First 7 Years is proudly brought to you by AskDrSears.com, your trusted source for expert parenting advice, nutrition tips, and natural health solutions. With over 50 years of pediatric experience, the Sears family is dedicated to helping parents raise happy, healthy children. Visit AskDrSears.com to learn more and discover their wealth of resources designed for every stage of your child's development. So, Hannah, what other trends have been sort of the most viral that you've witnessed in the last few years?
The last few years, I think something interesting that came up. This is actually in the past few weeks. We all know about mouth tape, right? At this point, mouth tape, yeah. Now it's moving into kids, and I think
that's dangerous.
That's a little, yeah, right. I feel like it feels a little bit dangerous. So we all know mouth tape is taking off. It's all about sleeping with your mouth closed, and it's good for development. But I feel like there's something that might happen to the psyche if we're putting mouth tape on our children. And that comes into a point of like, when is there a line that you're crossing with, providing your children with wellness trends, but making sure that they're not, crossing that fine line of doing too much, right?
There was, I'm not going to mention his name, but there was a pretty famous biohacker on, YouTube. I saw a caught wind of it. I'm sure I'm being fed. Obviously we all our phones hear something and it wants to present it to us, or we do a couple of searches. So of course biohacking is going to show up on my feed. But I'm watching this famous biohacker, basically coerce, I'm not sure which word to use, but this 2.5-year-old, this 4-something-year-old, and the 7-year-old to do these cold plunges. I think it was his niece and nephews. Anyway, cold plunge, biohacking, when this is not something for the first 7 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, leave that to the,
I think it comes back to nature. If we look at nature, naturopathic medicine, common sense plays a large part in a parent's decision making. So if we can keep that sort of degree of common sense and look at things through that viewpoint, through that lens, I think you can automatically rule out a lot of...
I would add to that only to say, heed caution when it's biohacking, this is early adopter concept, right? Like hasn't yet been proven. It probably will and will prove out, but it hasn't yet proven out. So we don't want to be testing this on our children and certainly not pregnant women. So 1 to 7 years, maybe leave that out. But it's happening.
This is cold plunge, and you see the number 2 hashtag is hashtag kids.
Wow.
Which is getting 1.2 million views on average a week.
Hashtag kids. Yep. So cold plunging, hashtag kids. So are parents wondering if it's safe? Is that why they're looking it up, or they're looking up how to do it?
It's more so. I think it's for virality. I think you have to keep in mind, use this lens of understanding that a lot of social media is for virality. It's for shock value. And if you see this mom over here, it looks like she's trying to increase her viewership by doing things that shock other parents.
So this is exactly the conversation we should have. Like, how does social media and these trends affect parents' choices about nutrition, sleep, baby products, the whole 9 yards, biohacking, the caution we're suggesting, just don't start that in the first 7 years. But what's happening? What are we seeing as a result? Maybe are you seeing this in your practice?
This is the first I've heard of the ocean of the cold plunge.
Mouth taping, all these different things. I mean, so this becomes the question. I mean, how can we, as a society, and certainly those that are health conscious parents seeking to have evidence basis around what they're doing, the products, we'll get into some products that they're using with their children and strategies that they may actually otherwise consider healthy, and cold plunging for a child is not. But I guess the question again is simply, how does social media trends currently seem to affect parents' choice about nutrition, sleep, and products?
I mean, it's huge, right? So we work with a supplement brand, Mary Ruth's. They're running 21 hours of content a day. They have a lot of kids supplements because they know that reaching consumers through social media works, right? You see something across a place that you spend a lot of time in, Instagram, TikTok, and you keep seeing that over and over again, it starts to stick in your brain. So that's what brands want you to do. They want you to purchase something. So remember that when you see the next ad, the next thing you need to buy to be a better parent, right?
Yeah.
How about, because in context of gut health, because really this is something, every parent should be very aware of when, again, because a lot of children are born into this world with C-section. They don't have that first exposure, and or maybe not. We shouldn't have any blame here. It just is what it is. They may not have had the luck Gigi had with being breastfed. But those are the two, as I've learned from you, most important things when it comes to establishing microbiome, right?
Sure.
If that's not the case. And if they're so lucky to come across a clinician like yourself and they do get that exposure, reseeding as it were, what are some of the things we should be paying attention to in the environment, products that are used and in terms of hygiene and spraying? Are we doing that too much?
Sure. Great question. I mean, the fact is it's not just one microbiome. So we have the microbiome in the gut, we have microbiome in the skin, microbiome in the mouth. So we are contained, include microbiome in our whole being. And each of those microbiomes plays a huge part in the development of the immune system. So microbiome in the gut, obviously, vaginal birth helps seed that initially. We see, C-section babies 40% higher chance of some sort of allergy as they develop because that initial seeding doesn't take place. If that doesn't take place, and we're looking at formula, then we look at formula with prebiotics, with probiotics, and with colostrum. Right. I don't know any that have colostrum, but Child Life has a product, so we add that to the formula.
I think you're predicting a trend here. Colostrum in the formula.
Yeah. No, colostrum is it's nature's greatest food, really. That's why when the baby's born, those first 2 to 3 days, it's just colostrum, not breast milk that's coming out, because colostrum is more essential, more important than breast milk, more important than food, because it starts the immune system. It's the button, it's the actual trigger that triggers the baby's immune system to start functioning independently.
Definitely.
So when that takes place, then the baby's really functioning independently with the immune system. Until that takes place, there's a in-between gray area where they still think they're connected to the mother.
I remember being pregnant and all over my feed all the time was colostrum collection.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling guilty, being like, am I not doing enough yet? And it's funny how that instinct kind of kicks in even when you're pregnant of, am I doing enough? And I think, like I said before, you need to be mindful of what you're seeing and what you feel as a parent.
How did you achieve that balance yourself?
For myself, I'm fortunate enough to have a partner who's also very interested in wellness, so I don't feel like I'm alone in it. I think sometimes, especially moms, and maybe it's a little different now, but I think moms were the ones who took more interest in their child's health for a long time. I think we're seeing dads step it up a lot, which is great. So to have that support system is really nice. But I think what makes it hard, and I think all moms can feel this, is when you go to the grandparents' house, right? And they're like, come on, let's just give them some ice cream. We did it, and they were fine. Let's just give them this. They'll be fine, right? And that you feel like you're trying to please someone else, and that's really hard. And you have to stick to what your moral high ground is of, okay, this is what I believe. This is what we are doing as a team, and we're going to stick to this. Because my daughter's 2, and she still hasn't had any refined sugar, and my mom would think that she should. So, yeah.
But to that point, the grandparents, they grew up in a different age, a different time. They weren't eating processed foods. If they were eating ice cream, it was grass-fed. So
junk food was not as junky. There's just no question about it. The food dyes and all the preservative agents and things that we see today.
So, we have to take into account that,
for sure,
the generation in terms of what their experience was, what they were exposed to, what they weren't exposed to.
The current administration, though, at least here in the U.S., seems to be moving ahead quite nicely on some levels as it relates to, influencing what the FTC is allowed to use and not. I mean, precedence has been set in other places around the world, in Europe in particular, that we're not feeding our kids all these dyes and, all these preservatives and extracts and so forth. And by the way, I don't know if this is just something I caught or if it's actually happening, but it sounds like perhaps they've even influenced, the mega meat, feedlot manufacturers to use grass-fed. I mean, we're talking McDonald's now maybe using grass-fed beef. Really? I don't know. Is that actually?
They used to use beef tallow years ago.
Right. That's right. To fry their fries.
Yeah.
But now it's seed oil, right? So you're right about that. We're all just sort of transitioning. It's not the ice cream our grandparents had. That's a really good point.
Exactly.
But you can, by the way, you can find that, right?
Yeah.
Will Gigi be allowed to have that?
Yeah. Have you heard ice cream for bears?
Yeah. That's a very clean brand. So Gigi's 2, she's at a party, they're serving pizza and cake. What do you do?
So I always make sure to bring her own treats when we're going to a party, when we're going to a friend's house, because I don't want her to feel left out. I think you have to remember that their psyche is very important. Their mental health is very important, as well as their physical health. So I will bring, a little like fun treat for her. That's like, it's like a fruit roll up, but it's all fruit in there. And she feels like, oh, I'm still a part of the party. I get my special snack. I don't normally have these at home. So it's really about making them feel included. And I was telling you at that video of the mom who noticed that when she was bringing her son to soccer and all the kids had Gatorade, right?
Yep.
So she was dumping the Gatorade bottle before he went to soccer, making her own electrolyte drink in there, and it looks just like the blue Gatorade.
Yes.
And the kid feels included, right?
It's called smuggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of parents' greatest tools.
It is.
I think,
I love it.
I think the psychology of inclusion is powerful. And I think in this day and age, in context of what we're talking about with social media and everyone, I mean, I remember my daughter's now 18 and off to university. But she was incredibly influenced by her peers through social media and their it's, by the way, that's how they all communicate now. Side chats and Snapchat. No one even texts each other.
No, they say it's weird to text.
Yeah,
I have
it's
sisters
such an
who are that
old
age,
person
yeah.
thing. It's
Yeah.
all Snap. Anyway, I guess what I'm saying is influence through your own peer groups even more. Of a core issue in this generation than even what they might, because they're actually better than we are. I would say we, as in my generation, you and I, to identify what they're being pushed and sold.
Sure.
Versus what is actually real. I mean, they're better at identifying that than I think we are. Maybe not you, but on that note, I guess here's the question again. In context of maybe now a toddler, right? 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. How do parents determine that if they are now allowing their kid to be on screens, if a wellness trend is actually science-based or if it's just pure marketing hype? How is a parent to know?
I think the parent really needs to go back to what I was saying before, is like focus on what your core beliefs are too when being sold all these different products, because every single child is now being like, you need magnesium, you need probiotics, you need all this supplementation, right? But you should be focused on food too. Food is going to give you the best supplementation you really need, and kids are resilient. But going back to the screen time stuff, I was watching this really cool mom I follow on TikTok, and she was saying that they still do like family movie nights, right? And I think that's awesome at that age of 3, and you pick something that's low stimulation, but don't give the kid an iPad because it creates their own world, their own bubble, and then they can start to look things up online. They can start to be influenced. So you're kind of opening up their entire world if they're looking at that iPad and they have their own little piece of the pie right there.
Right. What's your feeling on that food? I mean, I've heard you say this, but give the answer again to folks. Food versus supplements. Where do supplements play a role?
Great question. It turns out that both English and U.S. governments have been recording every year since 1946 the average amount of vitamins and minerals in the most commonly eaten fruits and vegetables. So we have almost like 80 years of record to look back on. So even the best growing foods today contain about 20 to 30% less of those essential nutrients than they did when our grandparents were eating. If we're talking about grandparents, yeah. So no matter what we do, we still have to make up that deficit to some degree. And then in my mind, when you really understand the environmental burden that everybody, adults and children, are exposed to, children are more sensitive to, more vulnerable, then we need to add in extra antioxidants to help their bodies neutralize, detoxify, and eliminate what they're being exposed to that their bodies don't need. So that's the equation. That's why I showed that global before, deficiencies, toxicity. So we have to make up that 20 to 30% somehow. If we don't, then chances are sooner or later that child is going to succumb to something along that line, whether it's from the environmental burden or just not enough of those essential nutrients to grow and develop properly. So each thing has its place. For sure, diet and food, organic, wherever possible, is the foundation to start from. That's critical.
Yeah.
And then we can supplement wisely on top.
Yeah. On that note, you guys want to hear Gigi's first food?
Yeah.
Sure,
It was the caviar, the salmon roe.
Oh, yeah?
From Whole Foods that you can buy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Oh,
she
yeah.
loved it. It was like brain food for her, and then it was high
Wow.
fats.
Yeah.
So I think a common misconception, and we've seen this in the data, it's like, giving your kids rice cereal first or
Oh, gosh.
oatmeal. It's
Um,
starting with something that's like going to
now
give
you're
them.
talking our
Yeah,
language.
they're going to spike. It's going to spike their glucose. It's not going to be great for them.
Yeah.
So we really leaned into those high fat
No, that's
foods
great.
as
That's
like
great.
her first source of nutrition.
So one of my heroes, and Bryce as well, is Dr. Sears. For me, he's the original medical doctor, holistic pediatrician in America. He's got a great saying. He's like, avocado at 6 months, salmon at 7.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's it.
Yeah.
So you started off on the right foot.
And I would
Okay, it's
only
good to
add
hear.
it. My 2 cents caveat to this conversation would be simply, given where most of us live. I mean, right now we're talking to you from sunny California, but half of the U.S. and all of Canada lives north of 40 degrees. And you can't get enough sun exposure to ultimately be healthy, or at least optimal. It's just not happening. And you can't get it out of your diet unless you got these crazy fortified, enriched foods, most of which all, hitting the system at that high glycemic index description you were giving us before. So what do you have to do? You have to supplement. Like, you just can't get away from that. So there's that example of environmental pressure of not getting enough sun. And so I refer to some of these instances like that as not being able to ever eat yourself into a therapeutic range. You need to supplement. Same thing, by the way. Avocados eat your heart out. Salmon eat your heart out. They come with consequence in some instances for the majority of folks that have to buy regular run-of-the-mill salmon. There's mercury, dioxins, furans, pesticides, all kinds of things accumulating. So probably shouldn't eat that every day. So what's one to do? Well, you supplement with EPA DHA. It's the smart thing. So in some instances, that's where you want to start. You just can't eat yourself into therapeutic range to achieve optimal health status. Right?
So I'm going to add on that. When we look at adults versus children's food intake, pound for pound, children eat 2 to 3 times more food than we do, pound for pound, because they're growing, developing, building bones, building brains. So when you look at that and understand that's how critical the right nutrients are, that they get all those essential vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, because if they're not, something doesn't develop properly or work properly. But 2 to 3 times the actual food intake, pound for pound.
Interesting.
Food is critical. It's the
So
number one.
critical.
Yeah.
You're building the foundation
for
of their gut health, of everything.
Yeah.
So macros,
Yeah.
especially in a child, 0 to 7, probably quite easily achieved. You don't have to supplement the macros, but the essential fats, okay, but essential fats you have to supplement, right? Protein's fine, but colostrum or whey isolate may be, given over immunoglobulins given their health at any given time.
Sure.
And of course, there really is never a need unless they're not thriving to supplement with carbohydrates or extra calories. Certainly not empty calories. What do we have for trending on DHA?
Yeah, so we have DHA here.
That's the essential fatty acid, by the way, so crucial to brain and eye development.
Yep.
And I think if we go down, what's interesting, so mostly driven by Instagram, actually, not TikTok. So it's a search for more on Google and Instagram.
Let's stick on that point for a second. What
let's go
is the difference? I mean, the reason that, Spate is using Google, TikTok, Instagram, what are the differences and derivatives of that data?
So what we're trying to do at Spate is we are trying to follow wherever the consumer is, right? And I'd say their attention is split between these 3 sources. And I did a presentation with TikTok a few weeks back, and they had this really interesting stat that stuck with me, and that's 40% of users on Instagram are not on TikTok. So we need to make sure that we're having a balanced sample size across the board. And that's why we're looking to explore adding ChatGPT as our next source, because we want to make sure we are covering wherever the consumer might be searching for new things. It's kind of like what anthropologists used to do, but we're doing it digitally.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. I like that analogy. Yeah.
Looking at history, huh?
Yeah, we're looking at history, what's happening, but now it's across the open web. We're living in a different world.
To
It's
pull
really
from
interesting.
chat, from what I understand about it, language models, that must be a huge undertaking compared to what you can just sort of pull from. It's almost binary. Like, here's what we see in each of these different platforms. But a language model. It just seems like it's living, breathing, and it's often diluted, by the way. You know, it hasn't yet figured out, or I don't even know if we call it.
Who is it?
What is that? Right. I don't even know what to call it. But it's constantly, you know, making mistakes, I suppose, like almost, you know, it's artificial intelligence. I guess it kind of has to make mistakes. But how does that work?
So what we're doing at Spate, and I can pull up Google and use this as a proxy example. If we go down, what's interesting about Google is it's down across the board. People are searching less on Google. They're moving their attention elsewhere, right? But we are tracking all the search queries, meaning what are people actually typing into a search bar? That's what we will be tracking on ChatGPT as well. So what are people actually asking as far as questions go? What's interesting, and we did this study first with beauty, and then we're moving it into wellness and personal care, is people use ChatGPT as a consultant. They're saying, hey, what is the best long-wear foundation for my skin? What clean beauty products should I use, right? Those are more consultative type questions. Google is more closely tied to sales data or to education. So what is DHA? Prenatal DHA is the third most search query here. Or DHA near me might be a search. So more questions around where can I buy this? Where can I access it? What is it?
Today's episode of The First 7 Years is proudly brought to you by Omega Quant, your go-to source for understanding omega-3 and DHA levels in both you and your child. And did you know that DHA levels in breast milk are crucial for your baby's brain development and vision? With Omega Quant's simple at-home breast milk DHA test, you can ensure your baby is getting the nutrition they need for their best start in life. Visit omegaquant.com to learn more and take care of your child's early health. How about trends that you're aware of that started as social media, kind of like maybe even parents wanting to increase their views, or for whatever reason people do things, that started as trend that ultimately then became very important and or, you know, have real health benefits?
A trend I think of here is back to colostrum. I think at first it felt like a fad. Everyone was like, we saw the search results sort of take off early, and we're like, what's happening here? But it's really stuck. There's a lot of brands doing it. There's Armor Colostrum, who has a huge marketing effort, huge push behind it. And it's now even considered a sort of like hot girl item. So there's this theory that, you know, every girl, mom out there, they have their purse, right? And you want to get into that purse. You want to be one of the brands they're carrying in there. And I think a mom's diaper bag looks different than maybe a 20-year-old's purse, but Armor Colostrum is getting in all of those bags, which is really interesting.
As a trendsetter, though, I don't know about you, but I'm intrigued. My curiosity is high as it relates to how much she knows as a health advocate, but trendsetter, what some of the stuff that she's used with her own daughter.
Sure, let's take a look.
So let's pick this apart here.
First thing we have here, this is a topical magnesium cream. I can pass it over to you if you want. The brand is Earthly. So we rub it on my daughter's stomach and the bottom of her feet at night to help her sleep. She likes the process too. It's fun, and I think that's what we're trying to do, is make things fun, not feel like an added chore. We also give her magnesium within her milk at night. So pass that over to you.
So that's like a powder you just scoop into her?
Yep, we just scoop it into the milk at night, give it a good shake. She doesn't even notice it's in there. And our pediatrician actually recommended it for sleep. So it's really helped a lot. It's helped, along with what we do is we have her go to the sunlight first thing in the morning, 12 p.m., and then right before bed. So
we're talking about circadian rhythm.
Yeah, she's setting her circadian
right?
rhythm. Yeah, something I couldn't bring along with me. But to your point there, not everyone has access to the sun. So I'd love to hear, and I can come back to these products. I'd love to hear your opinion on red light. Do you think that it can be something that's an alternative for people who live where they don't get to see a lot of sun?
Big question.
Yeah.
You go first.
Well, I was just going to say, I get pulled right back to evolutionary biology.
Yeah.
And I think that if we go to, you know, maybe one of the sources that I would go to for this information, which is, you know, actually this neck of the woods, UCLA, Baylor, Huberman Lab. This is Andrew Huberman, who's all about this. He's a PhD in exactly this. We are influenced, we have been influenced for many millions of years by naturally waking to sunlight, but it's that initial sunlight across the horizon, that infrared, that not only helps to reset for our circadian, rhythm, but which, by the way, is so many of our other downstream hormones, but also I think what you were alluding to, and now over to you, I think we don't yet know enough as it pertains to, let's say, these tablets or red light emitting things. And I just don't know enough about it's biohacking stuff.
Yeah, it's biohacking. So I think the jury is still out. That's my answer with the red light. And especially because, it's, the whole human body is about homeostasis, maintaining balance, not overstimulating, not understimulating, but maintaining, regulating balance. I think that therapeutically, the red light is very therapeutic in certain situations, but you don't want to overstimulate, especially a child. Going back to the infrared, it turns out I learned this when my eyes widened about 30 years ago. The origin of the sauna we were talking about before. So we think about the Finnish, Scandinavian countries, part of their history, tradition. And before the infrared came along, developed by the Japanese, it turns out then, once we knew what infrared was, that the rocks that they used in those Scandinavian countries to put in the sauna, because of the mineral composition, automatically, innately emit infrared throughout the sauna. Right? So it's just, the infrared is like confirming nature's use.
Yeah, I think that's what we're all trying to replicate.
Right.
It's what nature naturally gives us.
So the red light, I think, is not enough known, especially for kids. Yeah.
Speaking of, I think what is positively influencing the health of young people and all people really is, and when we're talking environmental medicine, if you will, and Dr. Murray is known actually for prescribing, get outdoors, get into sun. But I think, and this is what the Japanese I know call, Shinrin Yoku, which is forest bathing. So getting out for walks in nature, in green foliage. The science around that is the emission of what are called negative ions, which sounds bad, but it's actually really healthy for you. Yep. So these negative ions, not just fresh air and getting out into nature, but these things actually upregulate serotonin, which is the day cycle of our circadian rhythm. Melatonin at night, serotonin in the day. So just a walk outside with the high noon sun, great for the skin vitamin D conversion, but the negative ions that are emitted from plants,
from nature,
are so important to kids. So get out and play more, get into the dirt, also important for your microbiome. I misspoke. Huberman obviously has labs at Stanford University. I misspoke saying UCLA, but that aside, he's all about this. Yeah, he's all about this, regulation, first morning exposure, and I think some of that has to be that infrared exposure. Yeah. Off camera, we also said we're talking about melatonin. What's your thought around melatonin supplementally for kids, and do we have a trend on that?
Yeah, no. When we were talking before, and Hannah mentioned that this was one of the, increasingly searched terms for kids, quite disturbing for me.
Yeah, tell us why.
Obviously, melatonin is produced in the body. It's a hormone to regulate circadian rhythm and sleep. And one of our essential, if not the most essential supplement, if we want to call it a supplement, for a healthy immune system is sleep. Nothing can better help the immune system than sleep.
Right.
So if an infant and a child is not learning how to sleep by themselves initially and having to depend on something to stimulate that cycle, it's very disturbing.
Right.
Because then you're building a pattern, you're building a habit that may not ever be changed.
Yeah.
So, for me, with my patients, I recommend, a little melatonin if they're traveling overseas, long, 12, 14-hour flight, just help reset the circadian. But otherwise, try not to use it.
A reset button. That's, I think, what it was always intended for. When we think about the word supplement, whether it's an infant supplement, a pediatric food supplement, or for that matter, a toddler or a 5, 6, 7-year-old supplement. In this instance, we're not talking about being something that you're supplementing from food every single day indefinitely.
Correct.
It's still categorized. I think it's actually this vernacular. There needs to be a review of nomenclature in this industry, right? So, but supplement doesn't mean melatonin is otherwise found in food, which, by the way, it is found pretty high in, for example, pumpkin seeds from tryptophan, but and also tart cherry, right? Tart cherry juice, and so there's melatonin.
You guys know what the mocktails everyone was making, the Sleepy Girl mocktails?
No.
Yeah, that was a big trend. I think it was like last year. So people were making like a mix of like cherry juice, maybe some like yummy probiotic drink in there, and you'd have it at night. It's like your glass of wine alternative. So
Interesting, yeah.
I think that's something you could make fun for kids as they get older, is making them like, here's your nighttime little cocktail.
Yeah. Well, and this is interesting because, so sometimes nature serves up these ingredients, which in this case otherwise our pineal gland is making, melatonin. But unless you're really, changing massive time zones in a child, you don't need to be feeding them supplemental melatonin on a regular basis. Anyway, I think that we all agree on that.
And I was just pulling up some data. I think luckily what I was showing before is melatonin gummies are on the down, which I think people are realizing maybe they're not the best things to give kids before sleep. But if you see the top search queries for people searching sleep plus kids, you're seeing sleep aid for kids sleep meditation, which sounds great, right? Something that's more natural. Sleep apnea in kids is growing a lot, which I was saying before. I was seeing on TikTok the other week mouth tape for kids, which is super interesting.
But what, sorry to interject here. Why are we seeing because it's true, by the way, it's true. Why are we seeing more apnea in young kids these days? For the obvious reasons of obesity, but some of the like adenoid tissue and lymphatic tissue that's dysregulated.
So, essentially it comes back to inflammatory amount within the body. And if inflammation's occurring around the adenoids in the throat, then you're having sleep apnea. So again, it just comes down to how do you not promote that inflammation in your baby and child?
Right.
You stay away from all the inflammatory foods. Diet is the number one. Yeah.
I have a hard time believing there couldn't be at least a potential for a closed loop situation here. That is to say, when manufacturers see trends and what they're trying to do is sort of serve a solution to a trend versus there being real legitimate science to it. So where are people to go? Like reliable sources that parents can turn to for really accurate health information.
I think you need a team. I think talking to your pediatrician, but also a team of influencers that you actually trust. There's a lot of influencers out there now saying, hey, these are products that are sent to me that are actually greenwashed, and they're telling you the truth. So they're not just trying to get dollars. They're trying to give you the right information about what you should use or not use, because greenwashing is such a huge thing right now, where something says it's safe or non-toxic, and they're using buzzwords because they know that works. But really, you read the label and you're like, this is not great for my kids. This is not great for myself to have.
Do you have a 1, 2, 3 kind of checklist for people that, are looking to build that team? I mean, besides a great pediatrician in your area who's open-minded, somebody like Dr. Murray, obviously, but what is a parent to sort of consider when they're looking at besides numbers? Because I think most people just go to well, this guy's got 100 million followers, so clearly he's trustworthy, which is probably exactly the opposite.
I think you look for authenticity, right? I think it's more about engagement than maybe number of followers. You can buy that now. I think it's people that you feel like you can connect to as a parent, people that you feel like are like-minded, and everyone's at a different place in their wellness journey, right? Some people are just starting to take supplements. Some people are biohacking and using 10 plus things a day. So it's finding those people you align with, and then you use them as sort of your trusted team online, because a lot of our interactions are online now, which is crazy to think about. But back to the pediatrician point, I think it's finding someone that maybe meets in the middle, that can have a bit of both, Western, Eastern medicine when you talk to them and you feel heard.
Right. Dismissiveness is probably the antithesis of what you're looking for, right? I mean, in your practice, you can attest to this. You're always going to listen first. That's
the first rule of being a doctor,
right? Foundationally, but a lot of pediatricians, I think, are not open to discussing what is trending, or again, we talked about this earlier. Some things that trend, introduce it to the market. It's tested through. This is just what happens in science as well, but the population at large, and then it either fails and people don't continue to purchase, or it's debunked, or they continue on. I mean, I feel like social media is literally the biggest science experiment ever to exist, and it's living, breathing, and it will never stop. But it's some of these products get tested through, and some of them survive on because they work. They are what we call deliver on promise, right? And some just don't. and they go away. But there's that intermediate time frame where it's like, I don't want to be the guinea pig. I don't want a kid to be the guinea pig.
Yeah. Is it a fad or is it a healthy trend? Yeah.
Right.
That's the.
Yeah. Some of those trends are gone. I think back to like when everything was CBD all the time. Now we don't really hear about CBD.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was
so we
everywhere.
were all, the three of us were at all the major, health shows. And oh my God, if there wasn't, you couldn't walk down an aisle anywhere without CBD being big and front facing centered. And it was just, it's just, are there ways to use social media though positively for kids' health? I mean, what I'm talking about now is, actually putting a screen in front of their face, educating them, like you were suggesting. But can we use this for good? Because we hear all about the bad all the time. In fact, we were just focused on a lot of that throughout this segment. But can it be used for good? Can we arm our children with it in some ways?
In my opinion, I think it's on you as a parent to filter that content first for your children, right? I think back to, I saw this post the other week, and it was like, your daughter gets into your makeup, right? She's putting it all over her face. That's not on your daughter for doing that. She's 2-3 years old. That's on you for giving her access. So if your child is 10 years old, going on YouTube, watching all these videos and then being influenced by it, that's on you as a parent, is giving them too much access. So I think there's a way to empower them, be like, let's listen to this fun podcast together. Look at this cool video. Let's watch it together, right? But making it more about coming together as a family and not so much individualism around, here's your iPad. You can go check out whatever you want.
Right.
Great.
It was almost like a shut up tool, right?
Yeah.
I see a lot of parents do it. There's the pacifier. This is a meme, and I saw this online as well. But when given, I think it was a cartoon meme, but given the option of a pacifier or the iPad, they'll choose the iPad every time. That's a comment on our society.
And hey, don't get me wrong. On a long flight, we bring out the iPad.
Listen, come on, for sure.
Everything you want. Yeah. It's low stimulation shows. It's Little Bear's great, or the old school Disney movies like Cinderella. But
I have one for you, by the
Yeah.
way. It was my favorite. I literally was watching this without my kids sometimes. I loved it so much.
Right,
Peep and the Big Wide World. Have you heard of this
No.
one? Oh,
I need to
you're
write
welcome.
that down.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Peep and the Big Wide World. It's about all these cartoon birds. One's like a chicken, and one's a starling, I think, and another one's a robin. Whatever. Anyways, they're all buddies, and it's him exploring. Peep it's just the funniest, cutest. By the way, it's made, as a lot of really good ones are, low stim, but made with innuendo for adults. It's just so a kid can watch it and be entertained, but so can an adult. And as I mentioned, when my kids when they were 3, 2, 3, 4, I would go on and continue to watch some of these. I wish
I'll check it out.
Peep in the Big Wide World. There's one for everybody there. So we get questions to the show, all the time, and we have a couple of really good ones here. You want to start that off?
Sure. So this is from at HealthyMom23. My 6-year-old is obsessed with brain-boosting gummies. She insists they help her do better on tests.
I mean, placebo can work. I think, like, if that kid is working for them and there's no major additives in there, like, why not? If she feels like empowered by the gummies, let her take them.
I'm just going to throw this out there because we talked about this earlier. This is not per se brain boosting, if you will, but these delicious, chewable tabs that you guys make here at Child Biotics with colostrum. Kids love it. It's all kid tested. But what can this type of thing, again, there are species, strains. There's no such thing as the best probiotic. There's just what confers health benefit. But how is this potentially, working on the gut-brain connection?
So we go back to the very beginning slide. Mind and mood starts in the gut. So you can give, nutrients that may target or stimulate the brain, but the foundation, the engine for a healthy brain, which includes attention, focus, sleep, is the gut. So for me, always, with any child who's having any sort of mind-mood disorder, we start with the gut.
Right.
Get that in balance, get that working well. Probiotics, prebiotics, get the whole microbiome, the ecology correct. And then 95% of the time, the brain will follow. So it's an easy solution if you go to the root cause rather than the symptom.
Yeah, I noticed this firsthand. If Gigi has too many, or too much fruit, even too much sugar, too much of something that's going to set her off, her mood is worse. So.
We covered this one. Dad on the Go writes, cold plunges. My 5-year-old saw some athlete doing it on TikTok, and now wants to take freezing baths every morning. But so we were talking about in context of how some parents are looking to get followers and, clickbait. But I think this father's maybe concerned, is this healthy or not healthy? You might have an opinion, but I'm going to go to the doc for this one. What do you think?
No, I think what we're discussing before and talking about, this is pure, unknown consequences, when you introduce a child. Why we call this the first 7 years is because those first 7 years are so critical. The child is so fragile. Everything that takes place within those 7 years is remembered, is imprinted, and carries on for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. So we want to do everything to nurture, to help grow, to regulate, not to shock. So I put this in the shock and awe category, the cold plunges, for a child.
I agree.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think as a parent, you can kind of deceive them a little too. You can be like, hey, you really admire this athlete. Let's do your cold plunge. But you put on like a kind of cold bath and they think they're doing a cold plunge. So it's giving into their psyche a little bit, but then not making it dangerous, to your point of not actually putting them in an ice bath.
Yeah. One thing I will comment on, and that is the lack of resilience in children. So this just makes me think about how the point of a cold plunge ultimately for biohackers and what they've learned, science has proven through, is thinking about this like an elastic band resilience, So the ability to spring back from sympathetic state, fight or flight, too much adrenaline, to parasympathetic, rest and digest, relax. So that's called a rubber band. So pushing through in a situation like a cold plunge for an adult is helping that elastic band be more elastic, going from stress to relaxation. Not sure a kid needs that kind of exposure, but what they do need more in this day and age is exercise and getting out there and pushing them through what they're otherwise doing, which is sitting around all day with these bloody screens. And this is part of our message today. So getting them off the screens and off of that influence of social media, which is terrible for the psyche in many regards, and into nature, that prescription that you like to give. Get into nature. Have that Shinrin Yoku, that forest walk. Get sunlight at noon.
Yeah, get grounded. Go out to the beach.
Oh my gosh, exactly. Who do we have next?
This is at Wellness Mama. My toddler refuses to eat anything labeled probiotic. She thinks about the idea there are bugs crawling around in it.
Why did you tell your toddler that it's labeled probiotic? That's my question.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah. So what are we saying? I hear we go back to, Dr. Sears. Here's a great way of talking about this. The microbiome is actually a factory that's producing medicine. That's what it is in an adult and a child. So if we provide the right foods, the right probiotics, all of those things get turned into medicine by our healthy microbiome. So this idea of bugs crawling around, we can just turn it into, no, we're making medicine.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I like that too. I just, because people are probably asking the question, they see these products on the table. You walked us through magnesium topically, you've used with Gigi, and you've vetted some other ingredients and or products that you use with her. Tell us a little bit about that before we wrap.
Yeah, this one is a nasal mist. It's great for when you're traveling, after you're on the plane, or even just your child's a little stuffed up if you want to take a look at this too. And it has propolis in it, so we just kind of bring it in a little bag. And I think it's, especially when you're traveling with kids, it's good to have a few things handy that keeps their gut in check, keeps them healthy because you're exposed to so much. Yeah.
No, I definitely always with patients I recommend sort of what we call preloading. So 2 to 3 days before the flight, you start with these immune strengthening, boosting supplements. Continue throughout the flight, and then 2 or 3 days when you're there, and same on the way back.
And on that note, I think it's great to pack your own snacks for the plane too, because you want to avoid the Cheez-Its or the little cookie option. Pack some fruit, we even just made some meatballs before we left, have a little protein. Chomps is great if you guys have tried those before. And then the 2 other products I have on here, this one is PC. So we don't actually have her, we don't have her ingest this orally, but put it on her wrists. So it's transdermal, but really great for brain health. And then the last thing is just, kids fall down all the time. So this is just like an active skin repair. Has hypochlorous acid spray in it. Great to just, spray on their little cuts or any rash they might get.
I'm a huge fan, by the way, of arnica.
I have some. I have some in my bag too. I thought that would be too basic. Yeah.
Oh,
I
no.
love calendula cream.
But there's so much evidence behind this.
Yes.
And but kids fall and bruise. Half the time, all they want is that loving, caring, let's do something about the boo-boo. But when you have on top of that proof, hundreds of year-old proof as to expediting the healing process and the bruising and the pain, double-blind, placebo-controlled, by the way, for hard-nosed evidence-based
No,
people.
and especially the arnica if there's any head bumps.
Right.
Critical.
Yep.
Critical. Yeah.
And you get those with toddlers all the time.
Yeah.
So.
So lots to think about. Spate NYC. Is this also an app available on the phone?
It is not on the phone.
No.
It is only on the computer. But you can go to our website. And I think what's awesome about Spate for the actual everyday consumer is we have a newsletter. So you can go to our website. You can subscribe. There's a beauty newsletter. And there's also a health and wellness newsletter where we send out trends every single week. You can check out what's happening across TikTok, Instagram, Google.
Great.
Very cool. Beauty, personal care, wellness products, home care. Which, by the way, I'd be remiss, and this is something a little different than Spate, but if you just put in the database EWG, thank you.
Yes, I've been talking to
Environmental
this
Working Group and their subsidiary, which is the Cosmetic Database, Cosmetic Safety Database.
Yeah.
Moms, dads,
Huge resource. Huge resource.
Just amazing for the ingredients you don't want to see in your product. I don't know. Let's put in, like a I don't know, cream, bruise cream, or let's put in dry skin cream.
Baby
cream. That's a good one. Let's put in baby cream.
Yeah, I think it's great for baby products, but also products as a parent. So your kids are always getting into your products and wanting to take them for themselves. So you want it to be safe.
Perfect. Calendula butter baby cream. Okay, and so here's how this works, folks, is there's a best to worst evidence for the ingredients and or the product itself, but the ingredients found within the product. So there's the label information, all these different ingredients are studied, and then it gets a certification. In this case, it's actually EWG certified. Where's its score? They've changed the site a little bit since the last time.
I think it has an EWG verified score. It's the highest score.
That's what it is, right?
Yeah,
this is the score.
The
so it's like
that
it's
is
zero.
the score.
That's right. That's why I was confused for a second. There you go. You
That's
want
one.
that, but you 1 and 2 is fine. 3, 4, 5, 6 is heat caution. Obviously, you don't want to touch the stuff that's 7, 8, 9.
Yeah. It's a huge resource. Great resource, this one.
Yeah. And have you guys heard of Yucca too?
You can.
Yeah,
I love Yucca. It's great for, you can use it in the store. You can scan the app,
Straight
the
away.
barcode.
Nice.
For beauty products, food, really any sort of packaged item.
What is it? Yucca. It's an app, though.
YUKA. Yeah, it's an app.
YUKA, right?
It's really easy to use on your phone.
Okay.
Yeah, the mobile app that scans your products. Yes, you take this, you scan a product, and it comes up similar to that with all the different ingredients and additives.
And one last app I'll leave you with is Seed Oil Scout, since we talked about seed oils. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a restaurant app, so you can see which restaurants in your area have seed oils or how they're cooking their food. So if you're traveling with your kids, if you want a healthy restaurant, check it out.
Excellent.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, right?
That's neat. Wow. Well, that was a lot of information, especially as it relates to trends. Again, the site is spate.nyc. And, of course, what we've been talking about is something trending, backed up by science, or just trending, reputable, how to build your trusted group focus as it relates to, keeping your child healthy with the right pediatrician, and how to check labels and not just buy into the hype, right? I mean, just do your due diligence. There's so many apps out there. And don't rely on Dr. Google or Nurse Twitter or chat.
No, I think, I say it to parents all the time. It just, in this day and age, it takes more care, more time, more education to actually raise a healthy child. But all the resources are there. It's not that it's, that impossible. It just takes a little more time and care.
Right.
Which obviously you've done beautifully.
Thank you. Yeah, it takes the right partner to have too.
Yeah. So final question, Hannah. What's the single most important insight you hope parents would take away about the impact of social media on their children's health?
I think it's that, remember, brands are trying to sell things to you. That's their goal, right, on social media. So if you use that lens when you're on TikTok, when you're on Instagram, you're going to be more awake. You're going to realize what they're trying to sell to you, and then you're going to do your due diligence.
Yeah. And let's call this Hannah's choice, right? So from your perspective, what current trend are you looking at, or do you believe actually holds the most promise for actually really enhancing a child's well-being?
I think the one I'm looking at as I go into baby number 2 sometime soon is a heavy metal detox. I think it's setting yourself up for success in your pregnancy, and then that helps to set the baby up for success.
Great. So important. I mean, ultimately, every month, every quarter is important, but preconception actually is the most important.
Yes.
You can actually make the biggest change, and change direction. And in practice, for me, the hair analysis is really, really easy and valid, for testing the heavy metals. Simple to do, and gives you a roadmap.
Yeah, it's not as hard as I think people make it out to be, right?
No, you can take the hair sample at home, send it to the lab, and
then get the right supplement mix, the right binders, and take that for 2 to 4 weeks, and
you got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I love, and I'm just going to leave off with this, is in terms of laboratory analysis, these guys at Quicksilver, they do make products, but that's not what I'm talking about. They have a trifecta analysis of blood, urine, hair, and individuals can have themselves tested for all three to see how much they're storing versus how much they're exposed to versus how much they're detoxifying. And I think you guys are both bang on understanding your level of toxicity, because here's what science shows, right, as we know, that the best way for a mom to actually rid herself, besides chelation therapy, of heavy metals and mercury is to do what? Get pregnant. Because it all goes to the kid. This is the scariest thing of all. So you don't want that. You want to know what your levels are. You want to deal with them early, and of course have a much healthier you and your offspring. So thank you, Hannah. Amazing to have you here with us. Of course, for more expert insights on decoding digital trends and keeping your family's health on track, you can visit Spate NYC at spate.nyc. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, share this episode with other parents seeking practical, evidence-based guidance. And stay healthy, my friends. Be well. Thanks so much, Hannah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you
So
very
good.
much.
So good.